Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop and the second video in my new Mitre saw station series. Roll the intro. So if you haven't seen the first video in the series, I'll put a link in the description to this video. So this is my new Mitre saw station, and last week I constructed the entire station, put the coaster on, and I got to the point where I was ready to make the drawers. So I've decided that I'm going to make a series of drawers that can be reconfigured to fit into the Mitre saw station. Now, the great thing about using the system I've used as opposed to drawer slides is if I think a drawer's too narrow or too short or not deep enough, I can simply take it out, adapt it and put it back in. I can have every single set of rail runners with a drawer. I can use deeper drawers and have less. It gives me complete flexibility. With everything being there, I've got the flexibility to work around it. So I've decided that I'm going to make the drawers from 9mm plywood. Now, the reason I chose 9mm, the way that I've constructed the sort of fixed drawer runners, it will accept 12mm plywood, but only just. And with the wood is bound to move, it'll get, swell, it'll get thicker, it'll get shorter. I didn't want to take the risk of it being wedged in there and not being able to pull it out because the wood had increased. So I went to my local big box store. If you're watching this video from the UK, you'll know which one it is. It's the one with the orange logo. And I used their big saw to cut my piece of wood down. Now, I just want to give a little bit of a mention to this. And if you're watching this video in a country other than the UK, so if you're watching it in Australia or if you're watching it in the States, just drop a comment in to let me know if they have the same facilities in your big box stores over there. So the one that I went to, I'm a trade member, so I get unlimited cuts for free on pieces of wood. I think you get 5 cuts on any piece of wood. So I took a full sheet of 9mm plywood and I gave the guy the exact dimensions on what I wanted, and he made all the cuts for me. So all of the bottom of the drawers are already here. Now there are 2 different size drawers, as you can see, because I've got 2 different sized shelving units in here. So the 2 different size drawers are going to be made. Now, just a little bit of a caveat. When you're making something like this, the detail that you put in at this stage is going to be worth a lot more later on. So the reason that I got them to cut all my wood is not because their saw is hyper accurate. I mean, it is, I'm not saying that, but the one thing you get with that process is consistency. Every single one of these drawers that they cut me are identical, absolutely identical, spot on, millimetre for millimetre. They are exactly the same size. They also told me as well when I was there, just for future reference, that the kerf on their blade is 3mm, and I didn't know that. So in future, when I take sheets, that's going to allow me to do more accurate cutting. To be fair, I didn't get much off cut. So these drawers are going to go in this side, and obviously this drawer is going in the middle. As you can see, the drawers are actually really, really quite deep, which is going to be a benefit to me. So what I'm going to do is just lay these out now, put them in the configuration I want, then I can take my measurements and start building the top of the drawers. And I'm going for really easy construction on here because, as I said earlier, there's a good chance these drawers are going to take shape or change around. So I'm going to go for really basic boxes. I'm probably going to use brad nails and glue to pin the boxes together that go on here, and then I might just hook them in with a pocket hole screw just to get them to attach here. So let's lay them out. Let's have a look at what space we've got and decide how big I want the drawers. So doing this was really important. Number one, to see exactly how much space I had, but also to check that the cuts I'd made at the big box store were accurate, and to be fair, they really were. Okay, so you can see now I've got all of the shelves in the sort of drawer runners, and they all move nice and freely. They are very big, these drawers, and I have done that on purpose because they're not going to have a huge amount of weight in them. but they need lots of space for lots of different bits and bobs. So I've got 4 shelves on this side, and I've actually got 5 shelves on this side. I've got a spare one on the top. Now, as you can see, I've got quite a gap at the bottom of both of these, and that is deliberate, because I wanted to have the ability to either store something underneath, or possibly have a pull down drawer, or actually have a drawer where the bottom of the drawer, is actually here, which I can do. And it just means when I construct the drawer, I just need to put like a 12mm strip on the door to sort of hold the drawer up. But obviously I do need to be very careful if I do that of weight. So I've got that space on both sides. Now I have got a gap here. I'm not entirely sure on this side whether I want that gap to be as small as that. I think drawers like this here aren't really going to be much use. So my plan at the moment is to take one of those drawers out. And again, I'm going to keep this wood for future reference, just in case I want to put some more drawers in, or I might actually use it on this side. So with that deeper drawer now, I've got 3 sort of quite substantially shaped drawers. And because this goes further back than this drawer, this one is just a little bit deeper because of the way the struts are. I'm going to have a smaller set of drawers here, bearing in mind, of course, as well, that on the top here, where the mitre saw is actually going to fix, I need to leave some space underneath for the fixing. So these ones, I am going to go for a smaller set of drawers. These ones, I'm going to go for bigger construction. Now, the other important thing about this, I'm not going to use 9mm plywood for making the edges of the drawers. I want them to be a bit sturdier. So for these drawers, I'm going to use 12mm plywood, and again, really, really basic box. This one, exactly the same principle, but because these are smaller, I'm probably going to use 9mm plywood for that. I'll have a look and see how much plywood I've got. But as you can see here, I have got a little bit less space, so I'm just going to go for a set of drawers. And this one, where I've got the spare, obviously it won't actually be there. It will be hanging from there, as it were. So I'm going to start with this set of drawers first. I'm going to do some measuring now, then I can start cutting the plywood and just doing the basic drawer construction. So cutting the ply down was actually quite problematic. This mil of ply is really heavy, so I just had to take my time, because obviously when you do it, what you don't want to do is have it pull away from the side so you don't get an accurate cut. I then marked out all the way around the edge, and this was where the tray was going to be inset. That was the bit for the sort of drawer runners, if you see what I mean. So I just made it exactly the same as the side, which was about 12mm. It was then just a process of cutting up all of the sides of the drawer, which did take quite a long time. But as you can see, I'm using one as the template for others. You can also see some of that wood is a little bit bowed, but to be honest, when you fix it like this, it sort of straightens it back out just by default. So then I offered it up, just made sure it was a really good fit. And obviously the way that I'm making these drawers, the bits that are sort of the drawer front, drawer back, they're inside the sides, and that is done very much on purpose, because obviously when you pull the drawer from the front, you're pulling across the screws, whereas if it was just on the front, it would just pull straight out. So then it was just a case of hooking them all together. I used a combination of glue and brad nails here, just for a little bit of extra security. I can't speak highly enough about this little setup I've got with the compressor and the brad nailer. It's just made life so much easier. You can see there's a sort of tail on the back again. That was deliberate. I was originally going to put a piece of wood, but I decided not to. And then it was just literally the same process until I cut all of the pieces of wood for all of the sides and the backs and the fronts of the drawer. It did feel a bit like it went on forever, but the good thing was I got really accurate cuts. And when I put all of the drawers together, no piece of wood was bigger than the other one, none was longer than the other one. They were all absolutely perfect rectangles, which is what you want. The other thing which is really important is these drawers aren't majorly fixed to the bottom. They've just got pins in them. If I ever want to change them at any point, I can literally just knock the bottom out. And again, process of offering up just to make sure that everything's working, everything is in line and everything fits. Obviously a little bit of a tight fit there, but at the end I'm going to cover everything in candle wax, so that won't matter. So then it was just a case of making these sort of strips for the bottom sort of runner, as it were, and I explain a bit more about that now. Okay, so what I've decided to do for the drawer at the bottom, rather than having the bit on the top for it to hang to, because I'm actually going to use that rail for the drawer above, because I'm going to fit an extra drawer in, I've just knocked out these two little runners, which I'm going to put inside the cabinet at the very bottom on either side. They're exactly the same length as my sort of fixed in slides, just for that drawer to sit on, so it moves in and out. I did think about sort of doing two like that and having the drawer doing that, but to be honest, I just don't want it running on the very bottom of the unit, which of course I could do, but I just bashed these two out. They're about 1 centimetre, just over 1.2 centimetres. So I'm just going to sort of pre-drill them and put them in the hole, and then that will give me the bottom drawer space. And then it's just a case of creating the drawer on the top. So fitting this one actually was a bit more problematic than it looked. It was quite hard to get the screws to fix. So what I did was, when I did this on the other side, I used my brad nailer, because after I'd fitted this in, I thought, why did I bother screwing that and making it really, really difficult when I could have just brad nailed it in. And the other thing I didn't realise is I'm struggling with that drawer in place. Then I realised, why don't I just take the drawer out to give me a bit more room. Obviously hadn't clocked to that the first time, but it is the garage workshop, so I do leave all of my mistakes in. The other thing I should have said, which I did off camera, I didn't realise I hadn't recorded, was the sort of drawer runners you can see in there, the slats you can see in there, I did just knock them back again with a hand sander, just with a piece of 60 grit on it, just to take some of the sort of splintery edges off. There weren't many, but there were a couple. So having struggled on that side to fit the runner in, I did get it in eventually. But as you can see on the side, it's exactly set back in exactly the same amount of space at the front as the ones above it. So everything's in line. So that bottom drawer is going to sit exactly in line with everything else, obviously, when it's put on. And this is the exact same process that I did on the right hand side, as you can see it there. This is a really terrible camera angle as well. I do apologise, I didn't realise that until I got to the editing. I thought I've just laid in front of the camera. But anyway, you get the idea. The runners were fixed there, and then it gave the bottom drawer, it gave it the opportunity not to run just on the bottom surface. I then went back to the plywood. I used quite a lot of plywood in this build. Luckily this one was an offcut from the big box store. Again, same thing. This time I knocked it back, and on these cuts had a lot of sort of tear out of the plywood, which I hadn't had on the other one. I don't know if it's because the cuts were smaller, the strips were smaller, but you'll probably see as we go through the video, there's quite a lot of tear out, and it took quite a bit of sanding to get it right. Then it was just a case of lining the drawers up, which I did, and I got into a little run here of doing everything with some lines down the side to make sure everything was brad nailed in the correct place. And with that done, it was just a case of offering up all those drawers, and as you can see, they fitted perfect. Now at this point they can obviously slide back to the back, but obviously I did change that. Now this is the second set of drawers, and this is the top sort of thinner drawer, and then these other ones are the deeper ones. This is the sort of second section, and again I exactly duplicated the first process, no difference at all. When I'd done that, I did set them up overnight, you can see, just with some weights on them and some wood, and this was more just to put a little bit of weight down on the drawers. You can see the faces, which I've glued, are at the bottom, and this was just basically to weight them all down. Cutting the drawer fronts was very, very straightforward, because obviously a lot of drawers are the same size. So it was literally just a case of running some MDF through and then just hooking it on with glue. And then here I am just removing it. I'm not sure why it took me so long to take all of those weights off. But this is a really key thing, and it's something that I don't do often enough in my builds, which is leave things overnight with a little bit of pressure on them. And those drawers were absolutely rock solid. They weren't going anywhere at all. The next stage, I wasn't happy. You can see some of the tear out there from the plywood. So I literally just got a hand sander again. I had 80 grit this time, and I just literally knocked all of them back, took all of the edges off, and made them as neat as possible. With that done, I used this little jig, which I know I mentioned in my Temu haul video. Again, I'll put a link in the description to that video. But it's really super simple to set up, and I know that Rockler make one which is a lot more expensive. I think this was like $4.99 or something like that. So you set it up with the handle, get it exactly in line, mark where you want, and in the center of the jig you can see is a hole there, and that's the one I use to get the center of the dead center of the wood. Then it's just a case of adjusting it how you want it, plonking it on, and then just drilling through, and then feeding the screws through. Now here, I have to be honest with you, when I did this first time I wasn't happy, so I did open the holes out a little bit on the back of the drawer, only with essentially I did like a sort of pre-drill and just took a little bit of the hole out. With all the drawers made and the handles installed, it was time to put them in for my first try with them all with handles, and I have to say I was impressed. It's a little bit tight, that first one, and obviously that is the right one in the right place. But in a minute, when I went inside to rearrange them all to wax them, I did swap that second and third drawer around. They actually weren't in the right place, but equal gap between all. There's a little gap at the top there, and I'm going to cover that with a false panel when I've screwed down the Mitre saw. Then it was just a case of applying some wax. I didn't have any old candles, so this is Yankee Candle wax. It's a very old melt that I had lying around the house, so at least they're going to smell nice. But at the end, it all went together really well. I was super proud with how it turned out. Okay, so as you can see, fellow woodworkers, it's finished, and I am so pleased with how it's turned out. It's turned out absolutely brilliantly. It is by far, I think, the best thing that I've built on the garage workshop. It's so in line with each other. It's perfectly true and straight. Hopefully you'll have seen from the thumbnail, if I manage to do it, you'll see me lying on it. It can take a huge amount of weight, obviously, if I'm lying on it, but I'm so pleased with how it's turned out. And the drawers at the front, having waxed them, they're now coming out really easily, and it gives me total flexibility on what I want. But I can change that configuration anytime I want with those sort of wooden drawer runners in there. If I don't like these, or if I think they're too small, then I can just make new ones, pop the new drawers in. It's completely interchangeable. Same this one, where I've gone for, except for the top, I've gone for slightly bigger drawers down the side. Bay here, which is where my compressor's going to go. And then in the end bay, I think, is where I'm going to stack up all of my Parkside tools that are in the plastic containers, which at the moment are taking up a lot of bench space, and it's not very helpful. So super pleased with how it's turned out. I hope, fingers crossed, you've enjoyed this build. If you stayed with it all the way till now, thank you so much. The only other thing is I've decided what I'm going to do on the top. I'm going to go for a laminate top. I've already ordered it, but I'm filming this on bank holiday weekend. It's actually Easter Sunday today, so I'm hoping that'll be here next week. I'm going to fit it. If I think I need to do a video from that, or if I make a complete mess of it and I think it's something you need to see, then I'll put a video on. If not, I might just do a YouTube short, just see how it goes. But that's what I've decided to go for. Thank you so much for all the comments and all your advice and guidance on what to go for. Again, give me a like. See if you think this is the best thing that I have. If you have, drop a link in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. If you are new to the channel, please can I ask you to like and subscribe. If you are a regular subscriber, don't forget to like and comment. And also, if you're a new subscriber, don't forget to comment as well. And I'll see you on next week's edition of the Garage Workshop. Take care, fellow woodworkers.